been working on our video game Traveler's Refrain, which we just launched 2 weeks ago now, which is insane
Mhm.
to say. But yeah, we've been very busy the past months and months and months and months. But now that now that the game is launched, we want to get back into challenges and critique streams and stuff like that with you guys. So if anyone is just like randomly watching this, either live or after the fact, yeah, we do challenges in our YouTube channel, which is discord.gg/artbros, where you'll be able to submit work and yeah, have a chance to get some feedback from us. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be doing the stream, or I'll be doing the paint over, and Alice will kind of be moderating and guiding us through with stuff and giving her
Do my best.
thoughts. Yeah. So let's get into this. Oh,
Hmm.
there's Nico, one of my current mentees, and Demi. Thanks for joining, guys.
I'm sick. Hi, guys.
Oh, speaking of that, I gotta save his work. I wanna do a paint over of. Oh man, I forgot about this. I want to do a paint over of something he sent me too, because I think it would be
Oh,
very
sure, yeah.
very good for us to look at.
Hmm. We got some
Let's
good
see.
submissions today.
Yeah, we did. And this first one is from Markov, who is a longtime Discord member.
Hmm.
Um, and he does kind of a lot of environmental stuff, but recently he's been doing these like, like I don't want to call it a spaceship, but like planes and sci-fi
Hmm.
ships, right? Which are looking really really cool. And this is actually like a really really big step up from the last time I think we've critiqued his work, which is
Yeah, that's very exciting because,
yeah,
we were gone for so long, and it was like, oh, we don't get to see people progressing, but like, wow.
I know. Yeah, this is looking great. So,
Mhm.
just like my initial reaction to this, and guys, because we haven't done this in a while, there like just let us know in the chat, please, if there's the sound is weird or someone's too loud or whatever. Just let us know, please. But yeah, my initial reaction is that there's a bit of inconsistency in the render style. And I think that's having to do with the fact that like I'm very clearly seeing like lasso tool kind of stuff
Hmm.
going on here. And then the ship itself feels very like rendered, like painted rendered. The things in the
Yeah.
background as well, like this kind of looks a little bit like photo bashed, maybe. This maybe looks like 3D model, right? And then on top of all that, if we look in black and white, there's a very like strong contrast going way, 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 way back in the distance. And what I would recommend is like anything past the ship itself, so like especially the stuff like all back
Mhm.
here, should be a lot less decontrasted, right? Like not have
Yep.
such dark darks and light lights. The way atmospheric perspective works is things that are closer to you have a higher contrast of black to white, and then as you go off in the distance, because there's all those particles in the air, it kind of decontrasts stuff. I think
Mhm.
artists sometimes get mixed up with the sense that anything in the background needs to be darker, and that's not
Yeah.
always true. It's just like more contrast, right? So that
In
being,
fact, I would say
go
that
ahead.
things that are in the background should maybe be lighter because, in terms of value, uh, because of the distortion from the atmosphere, right? Um,
It depends, because there could be a situation where you're in the foreground, for example, and there's like,
uh,
a light
a, a
beam,
yeah,
right?
a
That's
light object or some, yeah.
yeah, and
So
then
the contrast makes more sense.
yeah, that's why it's like yeah, because you see a lot of concept art, right, where you'll have a really really dark object in the foreground, and that's kind of helpful
Mhm.
for like giving that like easy read. But the reason they
Yeah.
do it that is because of that trick of contrast, where it's like if you put something jet black in the foreground, that means
Mhm.
anything in distance behind it shouldn't ever get to that
Yeah.
same jet black. All right, let's see what we can. Maybe I need to just do some like uh, Photoshop trickery. That's what I was looking for.
Blend modes.
Yeah.
Love a good blend mode.
Yeah. And even maybe even more of like hard light is probably a better
Hmm.
way to do this. I don't want to go so saturated. But with hard light, what we can do is just like basically knock back that black.
Yeah.
And I think we're
That's
gonna,
making a big difference
yeah,
already.
yeah, we're gonna see it very quickly how much this changes stuff, especially putting it around the ship, because if you're seeing a lot of blacks in the ship and then there's kind of this like
Mhm.
little bit of ambience behind it, it's just going to stand out even more, because I think that's what we want our focal point to be.
Yeah.
The composition itself is actually pretty good. If we just like take a little look at composition, he's got the
Mhm.
mountain kind of coming in here. We could maybe do something else to guide your eye more to the ship, but I think what he's doing is something like this, where it's like a little bit of like a spiral kind of composition,
Yeah.
which is nice. Even these mountains here are kind of angled this way, which are leading your eye to the left. So,
Yeah, I think it's effective also to like use the camera uh to give a different like the fact that the horizon is tilted in our view is
mm-hmm,
helping to sell the fact that we are following a plane. Uh
yeah. But it makes me think like, what if we tilted it more? Might get a little confused. I like that the plane itself too is kind of like at an angle. It gives that
yeah.
like illusion of like speed.
Vitesse.
So I think what I also want to do is actually make this mountain just generally
Darker.
darker. It's a little too dark, but
Yeah, the mountain in the foreground and the hangar back there, like they're both of a comparable size.
mm,
So you need to work a little harder to differentiate them so that you can sell the space.
mm-hmm.
Oh, hello, Jack. My friend Jacqueline is here.
Oh, nice. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, she's very talented. She should contribute some stuff
Yeah.
to the streams.
Oh man, look at that. Two blend modes and it
Mhm.
already helps. I think what I'd actually like to do, instead of just like making this so dark, is select out this mountain
Mhm.
again, just quick and dirty, just to get the idea across. Oh, let me copy it, and then I want to decontrast this because we want
Mm.
the focus to really be on the ship. So
Are
we
you
can do,
using an adjustment layer here?
yeah, I'm using levels.
Mhm.
So you can literally just like mess with these sliders. I think actually, yeah, that's probably going to be our best friend. Squeezing. So if you squeeze these in more, basically what this is saying is like we only want the values to exist in between these parts, as opposed to whatever the darkest dark is and the whitest white. So therefore, decontrasting the thing.
See, I knew what that meant. Like I could adjust stuff in Photoshop with that slider, but I never realized that was what you were actually
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's sometimes it's like good to really try to discern what the tool is doing, like even with these blend modes, right? Because then you can like kind of think more of it off the top of your head. Like multiply is like basically like not allowing white to get through. So like even an
Mhm.
object that's like this, right? And then you go multiply, it's gonna tint it, right? Like it's not gonna allow the white part of it to shine through. Whereas overlay allows white to shine through, but it will kind of darken or brighten things around white. And then the
I just play with them until I find the one that seems to work.
hard light is almost like the opposite of multiply, where it's like it gives light even on top of black. It doesn't allow black to go through, I guess is what I'm saying. So
Oh, okay.
that's why I was easily able to tone down everything. Like I'll show you,
Yeah.
like with this same color, if we go to overlay, you see how the black is still really pushing through. Even soft
Hmm.
light, the black is pushing through, but hard light, it like pushes back the black.
Yeah. I have another question about
Yeah,
this
yeah,
piece specifically. So, Markov made the decision to have like very um small uh like uh lots of variation in those. Yeah, you're finding it exactly what I
yeah.
was gonna ask about. Um those mountains, like I feel as though it would help sell the atmosphere more if there wasn't as much detail in the mountain range
Yep.
itself.
Yes,
So you just
literally what
blurred them
I.
out. Yeah.
That's literally what I'm about to do. It's funny.
Cool.
Yeah, so what I'm
Yeah,
gonna
because
do is like the back layer I'm blurring the most, the mid layer I'm gonna blur a little bit less, so that it feels stronger as it goes forward. I think probably this structure it would do better to like paint out some detail as
yeah,
opposed to just blurring it. But honestly, like he really should have just gone in and painted some of these mountains a little bit softer. But we
hmm
can maybe do a compromise on this too. What am I doing? Gaussian blur. See how I'm not going to go as hard with that.
yeah,
And let's do this test again. Yeah, okay. Um, oh yeah, and then this is the other thing I want to do. This is like where you'd want to go in. So the other thing too is I
hmm
think that you were kind of just saying this, Alice, is like there's a lot of detail on it too. So
yeah,
beyond it being so crisp, there's too many little lines. Absolutely no reason he needed to go in on the shadow side of this mountain and paint all these little lines. Like it's just
yeah.
no reason to do that.
Our pathetic human eyes cannot perceive that far.
Yeah, they can't perceive that far, and from a distance it just looks like a ton of noise. So
Yes,
so
it'll
look for
confuse you.
yep, look for these like big shapes. Like right here there's like two little lines. Like connect
Mhm.
these and make a more interesting shape
Yeah,
from those lines. And you kind of want to just when you're painting environments you want to do this like all the way around. And you've actually been doing some environment stuff recently, right? Like you just posted something like a
oh yes,
yeah.
yeah. I did a study of a photo that I took a couple years ago, and I was having a great time with it because I was just like, I'm going to give myself permission to spend this afternoon painting something that is like not
Like
like there's no
for a
pressure on it.
portfolio or something. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
Um, I think it's easy to stop yourself before you even start thinking like what value is this piece going to give me?
Mm-hmm.
Um, instead of just creating for the joy of creating.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all stressed. We want to advance and like make things that are um useful to us in and like optically important, but just practicing your skills with something that you enjoy is also really important for your growth as an artist.
Yeah, yeah. I think it helps some like there's a catch 22, right? Because some people get
Mhm.
in this habit of just like only painting what they're really comfortable with, or only doing
Yeah.
studies of things they're comfortable with, and then they like never really expand. But like you're saying, like if you're kind of just giving yourself permission to like let loose, that is a skill
Mhm.
you then can transition into your professional work or personal work as well, because then your
Yeah.
hand is just kind of free flowing. You're not like
Mhm.
overthinking things, and it's a good
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good mentality to have sometimes. Um
I see
what was I
that
just gonna say?
Meg is here. Hello,
Oh
Meglet. It's good
hey.
to see you again.
Yeah.
And Jack, definitely, if you want to submit for the next critique, we like before we were doing them on a monthly basis, and we would provide a challenge for people to
I think we will
create
start
for.
that again in May. So
Cool,
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think we've got a good stack of stuff to work through today.
Yeah,
But I would love to see your art in another occasion. That would be really lovely.
definitely. So yeah, I'm not going to go through and paint all of these mountains, but hopefully you
Mhm.
guys can kind of see just if I flip this back and forth, like what I did to just
Yeah.
like not make it so crazy like complicated. Like if you this oh this was the other thing I was just gonna say too. So I don't have reference on me right now because I'm just doing some critique stuff. But if I was the artist doing this, I would you better bet I'd have mountains references of mountains. So I like
Mhm.
am referencing like okay, what does this look like in a photo that I can then kind of use my artistic integrity to imply imply shapes and forms in my own work. So
Yeah.
and what you'll find in photos is you're not going to see all these little lines. All right, let's look at this too. Yeah, I wonder if he
That
photo bad. I'm like, did
it
he have
definitely
a
looks photo bash to me.
or did he have a 3D model, like a big model maybe?
Possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, so like I'll preface this by saying like I'm not an expert at utilizing 3D or photo bashing, but what I can say as a critiquer is that this needs to be blended in more to the painting to sell the
Mhm.
fact that it's a painting and not a photo bash, right? And you'll
Yeah.
see artists that like worked on like The Last of Us or Assassin's Creed are like masters of this. So what I would suggest, just like looking at a real life mountain, I would look at artists who are very successful in doing these big matte paintings and see what kind of tricks they're using to blend this in.
Mhm.
So just some of the things I'm thinking of off the top of my head is like these big obvious areas where it's like I mean, thankfully there's not too much what do you call it? Jaggies like on the edge.
Yeah.
It's not that bad, but I would still just take my brush and kind of like blend in with the background a little bit more. Maybe we
Mhm.
can like even like throw some of this cloud like over top of this. It's like we want to, and
Yeah.
I see he's kind of doing it here, but we just want to like integrate the environment into the model or the photo bash like a little bit
Mhm.
more so that it's not so like it's not just standing
Yeah.
out. Like throwing around like paint strokes too, I think is what can really help sell
Oh,
it.
absolutely. Yeah, give it a little bit of like uh
Love.
artistic touch. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that it looks like, you know, it's not sort of like a collage.
Yeah.
Um the person that I think like I got the best tips about photo bashing from
Mm.
was Tyler Edlin.
Mm.
He has a bunch of videos on his YouTube channel. I don't know if he has one specifically about bashing, but he also like if you're trying to integrate 3D model work or photos into your paintings, I also highly recommend like if you have to do like a whole bunch of windows or metal panels or something in the distance, like paint one and then copy and paste it
Mm.
so that you're still speeding up your workflow, but you don't have to rely on like, okay, how am I gonna take this real world object that's very clearly a photo
Yeah.
and paint into it. You can like create your own kit as you're working, which I think is a really helpful tool.
Yeah. And the reason I'm being so hard on this is because I think this could be a really good portfolio piece and it's not going to take a
Mhm.
lot of effort to get it up to that like really industry standard professional look. It's like composition, lighting, all that stuff is there. It's just like the execution needs to be perfected to get it feeling like really professional looking. Like
Yeah.
even stuff like this where like I don't know this could be a brush, but this almost looks like a cloud photo right here.
Mhm.
It's just distracting. Like I can see it, like you don't want
Yeah.
people to be able to see these elements of your painting. And that took me 2 seconds to blend that out and make it look more cohesive with the rest of your illustration. Yeah, I think it's this kind of stuff too. Like this is most people are not going to be looking very hard down here, but it's the image as a
Yeah.
whole that kind of comes together to give that effect. So like here, I'd even paint in like just a cut mark, just so it doesn't look like you have these like basic polygons that
Mhm.
you're working off of. And
Yeah, I
there's
would
some
even
yeah
think maybe you could blend out some of the individual stairs
yeah
because
good call.
often, you can just suggest that kind of shape or repetition, and our brains kind of build our our perception on top of it.
Yeah.
Um, but to have it rendered in complete detail makes it too much.
Yeah.
Oh, but BRO is here too. Hello, BRO.
What's up, man? Yeah, he's
Nice to have you with us.
another one of my ongoing mentees. And can I tell them, man, what you're? I'm not going to spoil it, but can I just say that you're working on something, or do you not want me to
Ooh.
say it? I want to hype you up. This stuff too, okay? Like this is very
Mhm,
unlikely that a mountain would have these little like hitches in it.
mhm.
So, yeah, like we want it to look sci-fi and cool, but we also want it to feel grounded in the real world.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
entirely sympathize with Markov in wanting to render out every single little line and detail on these mountains because I feel like mountains and trees are two natural objects where you think like, but it's so clean and
Mm,
clear, in my vision, and I have to make sure that every little bit is rendered perfectly so that it seems realistic. But I don't know, there's a trick to like using just enough to make it seem uh plausible.
yeah, I think good good painters to look at are like
Mhm.
anime background painters
Yeah.
because they do such an amazing job at expressing a bunch of detail but like in clusters so that it's
Mhm.
just visually pleasing but not like over rendered because obviously like the
Mhm.
character in an anime needs to stand out amongst the background. Yeah,
Yeah.
just some of these things.
I know the other artist who we worked with for Traveler's Refrain, Paloma,
Mm,
she and I geeked out about our favorite uh like Ghibli painters and
mm,
stuff, and we were like, oh, you like this person, how about this person, like what do you think of their technique for rendering this?
yeah.
So that we definitely drew a lot of inspiration from them.
Yeah, I think like studying how artists approach complicated forms and what they do to make them look painterly
Mhm.
is important. And something I think Markov needs to, or he could do whatever he wants, but you know what I mean. Should I would
Yeah.
recommend him to study.
Hmm.
Dude, why is my phone blowing up?
uh
Sorry, 1 second. Go ahead.
oh, you're so popular. BRO said that you can go ahead and talk about what you're going to.
Okay, he's making a really cool board game, and I've been helping him like kind of figure out how to set it up and how we're gonna get it out there and stuff like that. And guys, you should be excited because it's really cool, and I'm very impressed with what
Oh.
he's what he's done with it. It's one of those things where you see it and you're like, this guy put a ton of work and love into his
Mhm.
project, and yeah, it's really starting to come together. What's been cool
That is
too,
super cool.
yeah, what's been cool too is there's an application called Tabletop Simulator on Steam, and you can
Oh
kind of
yeah.
like upload cards and pieces and stuff like that. So like we've actually been able to play each other through that,
Hmm.
even though like we don't live in the same place. So it's
That
been
is
really
so
nice.
funny. I definitely saw either through Steam or Discord that you had booted up Tabletop Simulator, and
Yeah,
I was like,
you're like, what the
what
heck
is
is
Nick
Nick playing?
playing? He like because a ton of people I know play Magic or D&D
Oh, okay,
through
yeah,
Tabletop, and I was like, I did not think that Nick was into those
yeah.
games, but okay.
You're like Nick should be working on the game right.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this is a pretty good like spot to leave this.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
let me hold on. I'm just gonna switch my screen. I want to save these, and I don't know what my last thing saved was, so I'm gonna cover us for a second.
Okay.
I just don't want to make sure. I want to make sure there's no NDA stuff.
Oh,
Um,
NDA stuff. I'll make sure that nothing is coming through.
okay, no, we're good. We're good. I was on the original folder. Okay,
Nice.
cool. Okay, awesome job, Markov. since Biaro's here, let's take a look at one of his paintings. Okay.
Ooh.
So this is like from his world that he's generated and seen with these characters. He has all
Hmm.
these like different like factions and stuff. I forget what these guys are called, but
Yeah.
as you guys know, I always like to put things in black and white. And it looks like this is just still kind of in a sketchy phase because some stuff is rendered and some is not. So I'm gonna kind of talk this through before I like really dig into it. Um, I think, and I know this might be because he's formatting it for a card, but I think just compositionally, there's just something off with like how much space there is on this side. What I
Yeah.
would say is like, if you didn't have any sort of specifications for this, let's say, I would honestly just pull this in here because you guys can see too the thirds lines. What we're doing is we're
Hmm.
literally putting this guy's head right in the middle of the third, and then this guy's head is here, and then it kind of creates this nice like swooping motion.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just trying to think if we can even push that harder too. Um, let's see. Like, what if we had this guy, gal? I don't know what this is. Copy and have them a little bit more like this. That way, the
Mm.
person in the head, in the middle's head, is like the highest up. So
Yeah.
something like that. Then, you want to show us that they're on water. So like maybe this doesn't need to be so high up. Like we're seeing the water on the side. Like
Hmm.
maybe we can see the water coming in more here, and it's kind of like
Yeah.
splashing up on the edge here.
I've got some wave action going on.
Yeah. I saw you had that mountain over to the left, but you've got a mountain here, which I think is okay. I mean, like, we could
Hmm.
put a little guy, like, make this guy more pronounced right here so that
Yeah.
you have some sort of background elements. Um, I'd also, this is another instance where, like, if you're not super confident with like, just painting skies from imagination, like, get some reference. Find a really
Hmm.
cool sky that you just think works with the perspective that you're using and just like use that sky, like just paint that sky. You can kind of tweak things to work with your composition, but like with an illustration, especially one that you're like wanting to get rendered out and stuff, like you really want to have it looking right as early as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, as early as you can. um do you have any thoughts, Alice?
I keep thinking like I suppose like if it's going to be for a card or something that's, you have to convey a concept really quickly and directly because it's like, you know, I'm representing an idea here.
Yeah.
Get it, please.
Yeah.
Um like I don't find a lot that I would change. I think possibly unless you want to present these characters as being, very uniform and like working as a quite cohesive unit, I might vary up their pose a little bit because they're all kind of
Mm.
standing with their shoulders like hunched over. And I
Mm.
know that they're, animal form, so they are naturally going to do that based on their spine. But like, we've got the one guy in the center, and like if he was stood a little straighter maybe and is like looking over to like adjust his mask, and then the last guy maybe is like kneeling to like get a sense of the water.
Mm.
I feel like that would give a better sense of like,
Storytelling.
these are, yeah, yeah, storytelling, which Biaro is, clearly he has a strong skill with storytelling, but like especially in these things that are very character heavy and like, I can tell that there are a lot of different peoples in his world.
Mm-hmm.
Like you want to like lay it on as thick as possible.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good call.
Yeah, you
Um,
don't have to be subtle when you're doing especially illustrative work. Like
mhm.
go all out because you want to use every opportunity to get your idea across.
Yeah.
Also, hi, Crazy Pug.
Hey, thanks for joining. Um, yeah, I think just showcasing emotion as much as you can in an illustration is like the point of the illustration, right? You want to feel somewhat attached to the situation that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm just trying to think of what else I would do. I'm also trying to think just in terms of like uh, technical stuff. Like, there's some things going on with the perspective that I think we need
Hmm.
to address, which is like it's always the the boring stuff that's the most needed to discuss. But you are showing us the horizon line is here, right? So at least we've got like a point of contact. Like what I would recommend for this person standing here, I'd make sure both of the knees are like below the horizon line
Mm.
so that you can really try to map out where these shapes are like in like along this plane. Um, this is also going to help you just like ground the character more and give a more interesting stance. So yeah, I'll just maybe kind of work on this person for a
Hmm.
second. I know I'm really zoomed out, guys. Sorry. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna try to like expand the stance a little bit more, make it feel a little bit more, a little bit stronger.
Hmm.
There's already like, I think this is what you were saying about not being subtle, right? The character's already got a little bit of a tilt. Just like tilt
Yeah.
them even more. Like, what's that gonna hurt? Nothing. It's just
Yeah.
gonna make it more interesting. So we can like,
Um, and I guess like the characters are wearing masks, but like facial expressions are like that's free emotion right
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, Especially like, it looks like this one guy in the front is more of a commander figure, issuing orders. Uh, like if you exaggerate that dynamic, I think it can really help sell it more.
Also, what are these guys doing? Are they surveyors? Are they fishing?
Mhm.
Are they scouting? Like, what are they doing? Like, I was literally just thinking, and I don't know if this works with your world, but like, what if this character had some sort of like spear or like a harpoon gun or, something like that
Mhm.
that tells us, like, oh, they're going to go catch some fish or whatever. Or like
Or fight
defeat,
somebody.
yeah, fight a big monster or something. So that's the way I would think about all of these illustrations is just like, what are they doing? Why are they here? How can I convey emotion? What can I do to make them more dynamic and interesting?
Mhm.
And this is things that once you start asking yourself these questions with every single painting you do, you never don't ask yourself those questions anymore. So it's like more of a
Yeah.
habitual thing you got to get into.
Yeah, it can be with a lot of these concepts that we're talking about, it can feel very like, how do I remember all this stuff? It's a lot. But slowly, slowly, as you start adding them, you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. I should, I'm going to adjust this so it feels a little more dynamic, or I'm going to vary the contrast here so that like we're going back in space more. Um, you would be surprised at how like feeling out a piece of work, uh, you will make connections that have been at the back of your brain.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just got a notification that said enable to activate chat. Please enable channels here. What does that mean? Are we
Well, I see both Twitch and YouTube chat.
okay? Oh, it went away.
So,
I don't know. That
hmm,
was weird. I don't know what happened.
here, I'm just gonna, if my keyboard would wake up, post a test here. There we go. I think that went through.
uh,
Yep.
went through. All right, it might be
Mhm.
delayed on my end. Let me just. Ah, there we go. It
Yeah,
works.
Meg
There we
says it
go.
works.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Thank you,
Cool.
Meg.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure on my OBS if it was like still gonna
Yeah.
show them. Okay, so yeah, like this guy as well. Like you really have to think about the fact that we're like looking up at the head, and
Mhm.
how can we show that this character is like maybe talking to the other characters? So showing the mouth from this perspective, we'd maybe see more under the jaw here, for
Mhm.
example. Um,
BRO gave us an update on what these dudes are doing. He says they're called cruise divers and are like a maintenance surveyor crew for the big vessels.
okay,
Cool. Yeah.
so maybe what would help is like having some sort of machinery, like some sort of box or something.
Hmm.
Maybe it's got a pipe,
Flashlights. Yeah.
flashlights. Yeah, maybe it's like testing the water, and there's some sort of like mechanism that we can imagine in our brains is like going beep boop beep boop. Stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
we want to be able to hear these sound effects when we're looking at your illustration.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, flashlight. It's like okay, instead of spear, he's got one of those like big heavy duty flashlights. Which I'm like,
Maglite.
how do I draw that?
Yeah,
Maybe
they
we
got like
make
a
it.
big handle and
Yeah, we make it like epically big. Make it look cool and
yeah.
sci-fi.
You can also think if you've got, a team going out, like in a lot of situations, like people have their own jobs in terms of like what they're doing. So
Mm,
if you have a maintenance surveyor crew, like somebody is going to be doing the actual repair, somebody's holding the light,
mm,
and you could have somebody be like the person in charge or whatever. Like the if you start diversifying the characters, you get like more opportunity for world building.
yeah, yeah. Cool. All right, let's move on. So this is Nico's piece. He's starting to do a
Mhm.
portrait. This is a work in progress, but a portrait of Wanda um,
Nice.
from the Avengers, and he was saying he was just having trouble figuring out the structure of her face, and like
Mm.
this is one that I think is good to look at because first of all, faces are really hard to begin
Yeah.
with, and yeah, I think a lot of people have this problem. Is like, how do I make this drawing look like this person? And I
Hmm.
think she's actually even particularly hard because she's got very distinct features. She has a very thin nose. She has very big eyes. She has a very like high jaw,
Yeah,
cheek
her
cheek.
cheekbones are very.
Yeah.
I
So
love that we just both pet our faces.
yeah, I'm like, what is this part of my face? So yeah, I think it's like especially with a person that has more distinct features, it's easier to over exaggerate it, which sometimes can work in your favor, but if you're trying to make it look realistic, it can be very hard. So the first thing I want to try to think about is the angle of her face, and I think that's the first issue actually,
Hmm.
um, where I think what we're actually seeing, if I just draw on the reference, is like she is looking pretty straight, but like her head is just like slightly angled like this way, like
Mhm.
like tilted this way, just ever so slightly. His face is either straight on or almost angled more this way, right? So we need to like give her face some depth. It's like we need to like extrude the front of her face a little bit more
Mhm.
so that it feels more accurate to the reference and also kind of gives that like little bit of subtlety to her. I
Yeah.
think we can see it most easily like with the insides of the eyes. It's like it's so slight, but
Yeah.
it's an angle that's like not if I draw a straight line, do you see that angle? It's like very, very slightly tilted,
Yeah.
but his angle, uh,
It's the other way.
yeah, it's the other way. So I think that's what's kind of confusing it off the
Yeah.
bat. The next thing I want to look at is like point to point sort of things. So this is
Mhm.
something I kind of noticed where like from from the edge of her head to the inside of her eye is too small in comparison to the ref. And like these are the things that are so minor, but if you are trying to represent accuracy, those are the things that you need to kind of examine. The
Yeah.
nose as well, like her nose is pretty flat, but there's still this little bump right here that's happening. And if we look at like, okay, here's the last, like here's the very very tip of her nose, where is that running up to in her eye? And it's like kind of like, I don't know, really close to her
Yeah.
iris. So his nose, like we don't if I darken this a little bit, we're not even really seeing this bump. And I think it's because the contrast is so slight, it's hard to even tell what's going on. But anatomically, we need to understand that the nose has that little bulb to it. So his nose is just feeling very flat. So if we like were to go from the edge here, it's like right here in her tear duct. So like I guess what I'm trying to say is it's all of these little things added up that is making it feel not right. So you have to be more
Yeah.
mindful of the little things. Here's another one. Like this might just be because it's still a work in progress, but he's showing us that the bottom of her chin is here. It almost looked like what he had before was more accurate down here, and he like erased it or something. But her
Yeah.
chin, she has a pretty prominent chin, that's angled a little bit more outwards. So like that's another thing that we need to take into account. Like bottom of the lip to bottom of the chin. What are we estimating that distance to be? Like
Mhm.
where are we estimating the edge of her nose to be? Um,
Yeah, I think
Go ahead.
this is a tough reference to work from if you're trying for like complete accuracy of the actress's face,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of her features are swallowed in shadow, and she's also wearing this like
Yep.
tight uh, helmet piece. Um, so I think it may be helpful to grab some other shots of this actress, like with her head in different positions, so
Mm.
that you're like, it looks to me as though she has her, she's got a very small chin, but when I look at her in these other shots, like actually her chin is quite prominent.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't, like, we tend to get tricked by our uh perception of a photo sometimes, like, oh, but the shadow is showing that she has such a little teeny chin,
Mm-hmm.
and I really have to adjust to make sure that it's coming through, and like, yeah, just making those adjustments there really helps with the accuracy of the portrait.
Yeah, I would also like really like go hard on the shadow like early
Yeah.
on, so that you're establishing that contrast. And these are
Hmm.
conversations I've had with him in our calls before too, where he kind of has this tendency to really lightly build up his values, and it is a skill to learn to just like go in and
Yeah.
be like, I'm just gonna go for this dark color, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things where
This,
if you do it, uh, you have to try to adjust knowing that it's something you do. Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, sorry, I was interrupting you. Um, the that difference I would describe as painting like a watercolorist versus painting like an oil painter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, both techniques are completely viable, but I think digital is digital painting is far more analogous to oil, where if you focus on just laying down big slabs of color and then refining and refining as you go, you're going to get a far more accurate or even like pleasing um, result, because uh, you're not like thinking about like how something should look, but how it actually is.
Mm-hmm. This is the other thing I wanted to mention too is I'm literally it's kind of nice that I can see his construction lines because now I
Yeah.
can tell him what he's not doing right. So look at this, guys. This line is so distracting. No one's chin goes that way. She has depth to her chin. Make sure when you're drawing your lines, it's gonna follow the depth of the chin, the cheekbone, right? Like he's showing us lines all the way up here. And if that's where he was like kind of starting with, and maybe he's plotting out shadows, but even still, it's like what you should do is if her cheek is sort of wrapping around like this, you most likely want to draw your construction line here because that's kind of like
Mhm.
where the turn is really happening from rounding to going more like flat, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it might,
Thinking as you're
yeah.
drawing that you are describing a 3D object, even
Mm-hmm.
if you're working from a photo, is really helpful there because like just as you were thinking about the contour of the cheek, which allowed you to place the sketch of the cheekbone more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you start thinking in 3D, you're thinking with portals. Like it's
Yeah,
I don't have a follow-up for that.
yeah, yeah. Basically, like anytime you're drawing or painting, you definitely want to be thinking of forms as they exist in space, three-dimensional space like that. That's always that like thinking that way is always going to make your stuff feel more alive and
Yeah.
realistic. Yeah, these okay, here's another example. Like he showed us an angle like this of her brow, where again we've kind of
Mhm.
established that the angle of her brow should have been more at that angle. And it's like it follows suit, right? Because when you're like, oh, this line should go like this, then this should go like this, but then the nose is kind of like this, and then the mouth is kind of like this, you're like, whoa, what is going on with the face, right? Like we need to think about the
Yeah.
fact that like if we're drawing another layer, if we're looking at even a flat plane of her face and plotting things out, it's still going to exist in space along the same angle or like in perspective, right? Like
Mhm.
if this was like a 2 point perspective, the lines would all kind of converge into a point way off to the
Yeah.
left.
At, at its very simplest, the head is a kind of short shoebox shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we've only got so many planes to work with, and uh, if you concentrate on like aligning everything based on that very simple structure, it helps once you get into the more detailed um, part of the process.
Mm-hmm. I do appreciate how he's thinking about rendering out the eyes though. Like this
Mm-hmm.
feels really nice. Like very soft edges for the eyelashes and the iris. A lot of artists tend to like do this like really hard line around
Yeah.
things, and then it just like doesn't look like a nice portrait painting, right? So the softness of this is feeling great. It's just I think his contrast earlier on needs work so that he's not just
Mm-hmm.
like building and building and building and building. It's kind of like what's the point in making it take longer for yourself to get to the values you're going to inevitably need to get to anyway.
Yeah. I think I think it was my friend Mari who she participated in some of the life drawing
Mm-hmm.
classes.
Yeah.
She and I would do a bunch of studies together, and like I was just blown away at like how accurately she could describe an object using only like three shades to
Mm.
begin with. Um, and I think that's quite a useful skill that could help here because like uh, even though there's a like lovely play of light across her face, um, the like darkest shadows are kind of all in the same area, and the brightest lights are also kind of this in the same spot. So like going really simple to begin with of being like, okay, I know that this part of her face is in shadow, and then like I can go pretty extreme with it and then refine from there. Will really serve you better, I think, than being like, oh, well, there's so many different shapes and like levels of shadow here. Like, how do I choose which one to use where? Like, give yourself the easy task early on. Um, and start. with big blocks.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, Jack says Mari is so crazy talented.
She should visit. Come join our streams.
Okay, cool. I think I got the point across. If I flip this
Yeah.
back and forth, it's like mostly a contrast and an angle
Mhm.
sort of thing more than anything. Um,
There's a lot of good
let's.
stuff there, though.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we've been sort of going hard on the advice for these and not like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
acknowledging that you guys are doing a really great job.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah. I should.
it,
Especially because I know his how he's leveled up to even get to this point. It's
Mhm.
his stuff is looking great, but
Yeah.
yeah, angles, big shapes, contrast. All right, I'm just trying to think of like, let's look at maybe Rio's. Rio
Okay.
has
I
another.
saw that Jack actually sent one in too, if we have time.
Yeah, let me see. I like
Yeah.
to, just so you guys know, I like to pick ones that I feel are going to be the most helpful for everyone. So if I don't pick yours, it's there's the only reason is just because there's something else that I felt is more educational.
Mhm.
Um,
Or maybe
here
your work
this,
is just so good that he has nothing to say.
yeah. This one is actually really good to discuss. Okay,
Oh, lovely.
this is Jack's piece, right?
Hmm.
Is it Jack or is it like Jacques? Like how's the? It's
It's short for Jacqueline.
Jacqueline. Okay, okay.
Hmm.
Nick said, "Thanks for the feedback. We'll definitely refer back to it." Awesome. Yeah, good job, man. The one thing I want to say specifically to him is like I was kind of harping on him for building up his layers, but what I did see is even though his contrast wasn't where it needed to be, I wasn't
Hmm.
seeing these like little light overlay because that's what I was really noticing on his work before is like overlaying almost like hatch marks that were very like apparent and digital looking. This
Hmm.
looks like he pushed into it. You know, that's like what you want to do with
Yeah.
your painting. So that's looking really good.
Be
Okay.
aggressive.
Yeah. Um okay, the first thing I'd say, this is just me being nitpicky. This is like so big and like you have such this is very like beautiful handwriting, but I'd almost like I'm trying to think of what I would do, but I
I know
always
a lot of artists will just simplify down to their initials or
initials or
like make a
something.
little symbol,
Yeah.
like Paloma did recently,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which may serve you. I mean, as long as it's consistent.
I always like to look at presentation kind of before everything else. That's like why with BROs I was like, okay, let's figure out what the crop should be before we even like work on a critique. And this stood out immediately and it's like kind of distracting. First of all, because you're drawing it over top of an area that has a point of interest. So I'd even consider what is it? Is it JJ? Like, like
Yeah, Jack Johnson.
yeah, like I would, I, dude, how do you do a cursive J? I haven't done that in such a long time. But like, let's just pretend. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Something like this, really small. Like I don't even know if you need the date and all this kind of stuff. If you want to do your email, yeah, but that's also something if you're posting on social media, like someone will be able to find you. Like
Mhm.
presenting your work where like everything is as perfect and pleasing to the eye as possible is the way to do it. I think it's even the angle of this. You guys are probably sitting there being like, stop talking about the but it's like these are the things
Talk about
that
the pretty art.
people look for, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so all right, next thing. This is a very interesting style too because it's like there's some outline and then as we go back in space it's more painted, which I think
Mhm.
is okay. I just am like, what do I want to talk about first? Okay, the first thing is like this crop is really bothering me. So again, like rule of thirds, it's like where can we, and nothing, we don't always need to do rule of thirds, but a lot of times it's easy to just kind of examine
Mm.
what we can do by visualizing it. Like right here, we have the character on this bottom third. What I almost want to try to do is like, what happens if we zoom in and get more of the centralized portion of the character
Mm.
on the third and still kind of have this tall aspect ratio? And that way it feels a little bit more intimate with the characters up front.
Yeah.
And then also, like, we don't need all of this outside information. We still have this really nice vista here, but maybe at this point, like if the artist had started more in this respect, they could have pushed the castle over a little bit more, brought in more of the
Mhm.
tree. So maybe let's try to do something like that where we can have this big orangey tree kind of
Yeah.
come in a little bit more. That way the castle feels like it's hiding like behind here. You almost have to like peek through the branches to
Hmm.
even see it. I do also want to check values on this because I think there is a bit of an atmospheric perspective issue. Yeah, like you see how black everything is back here, and if you're showing us black lines in the foreground, we can't have like really dark darks this far
Hmm.
back in the distance. The other thing I want to point out as well is just because you're going saturated does not mean you're going bright. That's not always a one for one. Whereas
Mm.
if we turn off the black and white layer, we can see this sort of like outline, like rim lighting of the light from the sun. And when you put it in black and white, it gets lost
Yeah.
because it's not going to white. It's just hanging out up here along this upper right edge of the box. So, okay, let's maybe first work on the atmospheric perspective, and we'll see what that
Mhm.
can help us with. Are we getting
Uh,
messages? Yeah.
well, I was just about to say, Jack said that they never like considered their signature as part of the composition before, so
Mm.
I think that was helpful. Um, I like these composition things are always very difficult for me as well, and you know, sort of developing the skill of like where is the most effective place to put this tree or this castle so that
Mm-hmm.
we're creating a tableau as opposed to just a picture
Mm-hmm.
um is a very helpful thing to hone. But oh, I also wanted to say sunsets are really annoying for trying to capture atmospheric perspective correctly because you've got all this beautiful color in the sky that
Mm.
is like creating, a little supernova, and you want to be able to accurately represent that but also show like, the sky is far away.
Mm-hmm.
Um so I think it's really something that uh we as artists can struggle with because you don't want to downplay the drama of the color that's happening in the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, certain rules are just going to apply. And I think our perception um, of like how bright a thing actually is or what the value actually is can be skewed by the sort of information of the scene as a whole. You know how
Mm-hmm.
like when you put a slightly greenish gray next to a bright red, it looks like immensely green,
Mm-hmm.
um, just by virtue of them being next to each other. I don't know. Am I being coherent?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm just trying to think through too, like how I would approach this because this is another example of like, man, did you paint all of these little trees? Maybe she copied and pasted them, but this is like, oh man, this is crazy. I'm just like, how would I approach showing off this much detail without giving myself this task, this monumental task of
Yeah.
painting out everything?
Jack
So,
says they did paint them all
oh my
individually.
god. So
It- like the amount of talent to convey detail is quite apparent.
I just have no patience for that. So I commend Jack for doing this, but I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. I think what I would do is clump shapes a little bit more so it doesn't just keep looking like point, point, point. Maybe what we can do is like point and then small point and then cluster of points,
Hmm.
point, cluster of points. You know what I mean? So that way you're kind of
Yeah.
really capitalizing on like the bigger trees, and then some other parts are just sitting back a little bit more.
Hmm.
Um, Again, this is like another instance. I don't know. Maybe Jack used reference, but I would. I'm not an environment painter. Like I've painted environments,
Hmm.
but I'm not an environment painter. So I would really be using reference to its fullest to
Hmm.
make sure I'm capturing this as accurately as I can. The other thing I want to bring up too is um, when you have rim lighting, don't just draw a line. Really think about what the shape is that you're representing. So you have the sun, and the sun's rays are kind of like in perspective, like pointing like this, right? Along the edge of this mountain, like that, right? So that
Hmm.
means that if the mountain like is kind of turning inwards this way, or like turning inwards this way, that's where the light is going to be hitting. So Jack is kind of doing that here, right? Like along this
Hmm.
plane, right? But then there's this like really hard line right here. I just want to make sure that the the mountain has like some sort of depth, and the light is sort of hitting this edge before it falls off into shadow, like
Hmm.
angling in another plane. So I hope that makes sense, but I'm just gonna try
Yeah.
to dig into painting this to
Jack
make it.
says
Yeah.
that they're not an environmental painter either, which I mean, lies. I've seen your other work. You're very good at painting space. Uh, but they want to experiment more.
Mm-hmm.
Had references, but got a little too into the details.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
which, we all fall into that trap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, I think something that is tough with mountains, especially, is that because they're so far away, we tend to see them, at least, if they are far away, we tend to see them sort of as just like an outline on the sky because uh just of the like nature of the way that our eyes get that information from so far. So it's really easy to just be like to paint it almost like it's a cartoon set, with like struts in the back. And if you poked it, it would just fall right over.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, but it is a cone, it's a three-dimensional object,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got all these like little wrinkly bits coming down as the slopes and the smaller hills that make up the mountain. um, and those are each little pieces in their own right that should get individual treatment, not to the degree that you're going to paint every single one with like intense loving detail, but that light should treat them all differently.
Yeah. I think I helped this out a little bit. So
Yeah.
what I am trying to visualize is the fact that like you were just saying, like if we made this like just even a simple pyramid, right? Like in space,
Mhm.
it's probably going to be something like this, right? Sitting on this ground plane.
Mhm.
So that means that the sun is really just going to hit this back plane, right? Like you might see some sort of reflective bits on this side, but like this plane that's facing forward should be the one that's like in shadow, right? So before Jack kind of had this the light like somehow, yeah, it looks like the mountain is almost like very very flat here, and
Mhm.
I just kind of very slightly angled the mountain a little bit more so that you're seeing this more dynamic light hitting this side, and then you're just seeing these little bits of light
Mhm.
kind of reflecting around the edge. So I don't know if I explained that very well, but hopefully you guys can
Oh, I think
see it.
it came across.
Okay. I would also say like the rendering on this, I mean the rendering everywhere looks really great. I almost feel like you're doing yourself a disservice to not just paint the whole thing. And I don't know, maybe
without the
that's
line work.
I don't know if that's just kind of maybe
Yeah.
against your style a little bit, but like I kind of want to see this castle painted out.
Hmm.
And I think also wouldn't this light be hitting the the castle too? Like
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like maybe the shadow of the castle might be affected by the color as well. Like it seems like it isn't getting enough of a red glow
yeah,
to it.
yeah, yeah, right?
Um yeah, the pyramid uh sketch that you did was apparently quite helpful
Okay,
for
cool.
Jack. Yeah. And also I like she mentions that line art is a huge part of her style, so tries to always have it. And she's a very gifted line art um, draftsman.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
but I
I
mean, like
can
I
see
struggle
it.
with this too
Yeah.
because I often do pieces with a lot of line work as a part of them, and like trying to celebrate both like classical rendering without line
Yeah.
and the more kind of comic book approach is really quite tough. I think maybe like checking out some references from comic work that's in color because I know that there are artists who are doing some really fascinating things with that
You
relationship.
know who you should look is Fiona Staples from Saga. Have you ever seen Saga?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
Saga.
So she has these like really cool painted backgrounds, but they're very simplified. And then obviously her characters are like traditional comic book like ink, you know, outlines and stuff.
Yeah.
But that might be a good one to kind of reference.
Hmm.
Because yeah, it just is feeling almost like two different styles, and I think there is a way to do what you're doing to get it feeling more cohesive. But I think that's just it, is like in order to really sell your style you have to figure out how to like make this perfect. And it's, I think
Hmm.
it's just it's literally hard to do it because you have the foreground with lines and the background without lines. Maybe it's even as simple as we were just talking about like anime and stuff, like maybe the whole environment is completely painted but just your
Yeah.
characters have black line. I don't know if that's the answer,
Yeah.
but yeah. I think also like you know who else kind of I've doesn't Sam does art does stuff like that too, right? Like he has characters sometimes that have like black outline, but then his backgrounds are kind of rendered out.
Hmm.
It's more stylized, but
I'm sure you're like I just can't bring anything to mind.
yeah,
And we were just talking about him the other
yeah,
day. Uh,
you're
but yeah, it's a balance to be struck.
yeah. Either way, like if you're showing us this sunset, you're showing these really harsh, you know, oranges and stuff. I think you either have to break your line work on the top edges to give your character this lighting, this rim lighting,
Mm,
or it needs to be really thin underneath your line work. But I almost think sometimes it's cool when artists have line art and then they break the line work for lighting or effects or
yeah.
whatever.
I love the like watercolor painterly effect that you managed to achieve with, I'm assuming, digital tools. I would be very impressed if this was a traditional piece. Um,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's digital.
yeah.
Yeah, it does look really nice. The rendering even on the characters looks really nice. It's just yeah, you have to make everything feel like it's part of the same piece. Like yeah, wouldn't I gotta I now I'm like, man, I gotta look at some more sunsets or something. But I think wouldn't everything have this hit of rim light,
Yeah.
right?
Especially if it's at like right at that apex when the light is like, oh, I'm about to go.
Yeah,
And it's got that really intense angle.
yeah. Oh, this was the other thing I did while you were talking is like I tried to
Hmm.
just make one more little in between of layer between some of
Hmm.
these forest bits. So what I was trying to think about in terms of like if I was to draw this kind of out in 3D is like, it's
Hmm.
kind of snaking down this way
Yeah.
and then back this way as opposed to just almost feeling like these cutouts of like here's a plane, here's a plane, here's a plane.
Hmm.
So, yeah, if we kind of go back and forth on this one, knocking back the contrast, giving the mountain more of like a defined sort of shape, cropping it in, uh,
Hmm.
yeah, darkening the shadow on some of these planes. I think even the character's hair, even though she's got like this white hair, it might need
Yeah.
to be a little bit darker on the backside if you have this really intense sunset. And the shadows
I would
too,
agree with that, I think.
right? Wouldn't the shadows be
Yeah.
really, really dark? Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, I think this is a really good piece to have done though, because I'm sure you learned a lot. Like it's not easy to like there's a lot going on in this painting, I guess is what I'm trying to
Hmm.
say. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is like the extra 10%, right?
hmm
Like, you know,
yeah,
it's
pushing it
difficult when you get
past
to the
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you get to the end of a painting, you're thinking like, there's nothing I could possibly do to bring this up any further. But
hmm
like, somebody else's perspective is gonna give you a clue to that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jack. I'm really glad that you submitted your piece. It
Yeah.
was a great thing to talk through.
Awesome. All right, I wanted to just more quickly kind of go through some of the other ones.
Hmm.
So this is Rio's piece. The first thing I would say with this is like, okay, it's got this really dynamic, almost like cinematic look, but
Hmm.
you want to ask yourself too. It's like, what's the point of this, right? Like,
Hmm.
what is the train carrying? Why is the train going through this reddish tunnel? Like, is someone controlling the train? Is the train controlling
Yeah.
itself? Like all of these storytelling questions to make it more than just a painting of a train. The other thing I would
Hmm.
say too, again, like reference, right? Like I want to see like the tracks, or it looks like it's on fire. Okay, there you go. So
Yeah.
the fact that that wasn't even an immediate read for me is, yeah, like
Significant.
significant, right? Like, so, okay, if you're trying to show us that this train is on fire, so maybe just off the top of my head, first thing is like maybe it's like got sparks because it's trying to squeal to a stop, right?
Hmm.
I actually now don't even know if it's moving or if it's parked, right? Like that's another thing
Yeah.
we want to know. If it's moving, like we can kind of blend out the edges to give a little bit more of a motion blur. This is another thing I was saying with like Markov's stuff, but like if you
Hmm.
have these kind of, I don't know if this was a 3D model or what it was, but it's just everything is so crisp.
Mm.
Consider using more atmosphere. I think you could even just knock it back by taking some of this color
Yeah.
and just losing
A
some of
big
the,
fire like that is really going to blow out
yeah.
the environment around it too. Like, I don't know if you've ever been around a really chaotic giant fire, especially in a dark environment, but like it's so bright.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm also wondering, so in theory, the composition is elegant. We have this like
Mm-hmm. Dutch angle.
dark object that's yeah. But I almost wish that the train were closer to the viewer.
Mm.
If
Yeah.
there's not anything that's supposed to be in front, like I don't know if this is a finished piece or not.
It
Um,
does make it almost unnerving that it is far away, but then it's like we
yeah.
have to set dress the scene to
Hmm.
show us even more what's going on. Like here's just an example. Oops. Like what if there's a um like a blocker of some sort here?
Hmm.
What if this place is condemned? These are all the things we could ask ourselves to make it feel like, because that would actually be kind of cool, the fact that it's weirdly eerie and far away, but you're showing us there's this, maybe even this blocker
Hmm.
broke, and it's like someone had gone in there to purposefully set this train on fire. You know, like that's how you start thinking like a storyteller with your paintings is
Mhm.
like giving us little hints of what you're telling us is happening in the scene without straight up being like,
Mhm.
here's a character, here's a this thing, here's that thing. Um,
I had a mentor once who was going through some composition sketches that I'd done. I
mm-hmm,
was trying to frame Beauty and the Beast in like a new way.
mm,
It was part of an assignment. And he was like, "You've chosen all of the story significant moments to illustrate, but not necessarily the most visually interesting that would
mm,
give us more of a sense of the entire world."
mm-hmm,
So it's quite difficult to be like judicious in choosing which element of the scene you choose to illustrate. Like if we're looking at this scene where a train has caught on fire,
mm-hmm.
Rio said that it's a derailed train.
Okay.
Like we can choose to frame it from this angle, but what is um like what value is that adding?
Mm-hmm,
You know, it would it be more effective to show the train like from the inside with the fire, or like, you know,
mm,
there's so many different ways that we can convey this. And I I like I said before, the I think the composition is quite interesting shape and like light wise, but is this the best way to tell the story that you're trying to tell?
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that it's like there's something here, but I want
Mhm.
more answers as to what's going on, and I think that's what would make it effective.
Yeah.
Because the fact that you're like, yeah, it's a train, it's on fire, it's derailed, all this stuff. Like, is it? Are we looking at it from the side? Like, is this the tracks? And we're like side, like, you know what I mean? These are the things that I'm like
Yeah.
just kind of confused about that I want to know more answers to. Yeah, to help sell us on the illustration. But overall, I mean, like, yeah, the rendering is like looking pretty nice. Just
Mhm.
keep pushing your stuff just all around, and I think, yeah, it's getting there. All right, let's see. Da, 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 da. All right, honestly, some of these other ones I'm like having trouble figuring out how I would kind of share critique.
Mhm.
Mm,
Is there anybody like in chat who is desperate for some help and like has a specific question about their piece?
that's a good question too.
Let's see.
Oh, look, what did Meg? Let's. What is this that she submitted? Okay, this is like some sort of illustration. Oh, this is
Mm.
intense.
Dang, Meg.
I'd say okay if I'm just doing like a proportional critique on this. I think that's maybe where I could lend some help. Is you kind of have this dynamic perspective of we're looking down on the figure, so I think there's things you can do. Again, we're always trying to push the storytelling as best we can. Obviously, it's a very intense thematic, so
Mhm.
even something along the lines of like maybe her head is more tilted and more like her hand is like covering more. What if it's just straight up covering her eyes to begin with? We're just seeing the mouth, and then the hair is kind of all splayed out. What if the hair is like really long? Like that could look cool with all this empty space.
Yeah. I
Um,
think also it's a very like straight up and down pose, but if somebody were to actually like just flop under the floor without, you know, in such a dejected fashion, your body isn't going to be so perfectly straight up and down, right? Like you might the back might be twisted a little bit.
yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Hmm.
So like trying to figure out that center line, right, along the
Yeah.
figure like that. This is also an image that or a pose with a tripod. You could just take a ref of yourself like very
Hmm.
easily and
A
have,
tripod or a friend.
yeah, or a friend, whatever, um, have a lot more accuracy. So what I'm trying to do is, even though we're looking straight on it, give it more depth. So like the knee is coming at the camera. This elbow is kind of, I guess this elbow. Well, yeah, no. If the elbow's like on the face like this, the elbow would also be coming at the camera,
Hmm.
right? Like that. The chest is going to be coming towards the camera. This arm's kind of lying flat a little bit more. And yeah, like you were saying, Alice, like angling this body a little bit, I think is
Hmm.
going to be helpful. Um, I'm Yeah, it's kind of confusing. It's almost like she's floating, which I'm
Or
not.
on a curved surface, it almost looks like.
Yeah,
Because I'm
be
not, I feel like we would be seeing more of her or a different angle of that leg if we were
this
just
one, this
looking
one,
straight
right?
down at her. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's what I was just looking at. So yeah, I almost think that laying the legs straight a little bit more would be
Hmm.
helpful. But yeah, it's like if you're gonna show drama, it's like show drama, right? Like
Be cheesy.
yeah,
There are many ways to use nuance and beautiful subtlety. Um, the like immediate punchiness of the piece is not, don't be sparing there,
mm,
you know. You can be a little more genteel later on. Oh, Meg says, kind of a therapy pick for me. I've been having a hard time with IVF failures. The
I'm
poses
sorry to
where
hear
I've
that.
probably struggled the most. I found a few rests and meshed them together, but still not quite what I wanted. Laying on the floor, there are going to be more pills and syringes and vials all over the floor. Yeah, this is a very like powerful message to get across with the illustration. I think really leaning into those aspects that we talked about will, lend more of the pain to the piece. I'm sorry that you're going through that.
Yeah, yeah. I think hands too, right? Like
Hmm.
beautiful, like just elegant looking hands, even though it's like kind of letting go of this bottle, having I think the best thing to do is when you're posing hands is you just kind of try to let it loose and hang a
Yeah.
little bit. Those always just look the nicest, and that's what people are looking for. Even on the face, right? Like I could go like this with my hands on my face, or I could just like gently
Yeah.
loosen them, right? And like you see my pinky is curled a little bit. Those the hands can tell a lot of the story
Hmm.
in itself. So it's almost like the way to think about this is like it's almost like you would need less of the graphic-y stuff
Hmm.
and just like I don't know, like what if you just had like one syringe and the pill
Do you mean
bottle?
the sketches that are around her? I don't think those are finished yet.
But I see what like she's
Yeah.
gonna render these too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess what I would say with that too, they, they kind of look cool in that sketchy way, honestly. So
Yeah, they do.
that's one way to do it is to have them almost
Mhm.
be like icons of the thing.
Yeah.
There's a couple ways you could do it, right? You could have them be icons of the things. You could render them, and if you're gonna do that, I would make sure that compositionally you're like making them feel like they're
Ooh.
framing the character more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Or
or
even like
yeah,
if you go crazy with it and just have a ton, like they're making a little cage around the figure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That would be a
Mm.
lot of rendering, but it would look really impactful, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you're doing like a really important to you emotional kind of piece, it's worth just go all in, right? Like make it
Yeah.
crazy. And I think it will speak to other people that way as well. So
Yeah, I was speaking to a friend about this the other day, actually, like how creating art about tough emotions can be really freeing.
Hmm.
But I think also um, that one can go another step forward in like taking your bumpers off and just being like, I don't really care what this looks like. I want it to give the feeling. I want
Mm.
to like vent my emotion into this piece.
Hmm.
And you know, it depends on what your goal is with it, Meg. Like if you want to give more people the view of it, or if it's more of a personal thing for you. Like really I feel as though like indulging in the act of creating rather than the final product um could be helpful. It's been helpful for me in doing this kind of piece.
Hmm. Yeah.
She said, I want to display the sheer amount of daily meds, syringes, blood tests, and more. I'll kind of go into it for something that might be worth it later on. Yeah.
Mm. Nice. Cool. I think this is actually a good one to leave off on because I gotta
Yeah.
hop off. But yeah, guys, like awesome work and thank you for submitting. I hope you guys like learned something from this and found it helpful. And yeah, look out for monthly challenges again. I'm gonna try to start that up
Yeah.
in May. And yeah, keep posting awesome work in the Discord and sharing it with people. So
Yeah. Really nice to hang out with you guys
yeah,
again.
yeah,
Thanks for submitting everything.
yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.